in the podcast.
Nice intro. Thanks, John.
Yeah, dude,
Thanks.
thank you for joining us. I'd love to hear more about your photography, more about kind of what you're doing with Cera AI. I'd love for you to introduce yourself and just we can kind of get into it.
Sure. Thanks. Wow. So where do I start? I mean, I start when I was a kid, making drawings at like 2 years old, and my mom saved like a whole box of them. So I know it came from somewhere, but I really discovered photography in college, and I had a roommate that was a graphic artist and collected photography. He worked at the Frankel Gallery in San Francisco, and yeah, it just really took. I mean, I was a graphic arts student in college and a music major, and when I discovered photography, it was like instant connection. Like I'm like, why should I be using pens and paper and markers to like take hours to make stuff when I can just go snap a picture? And so I just really fell in love with photography, and yeah, it's just been a big journey ever since.
And is it mostly black and white? I mean, do you do any other color or?
I shoot a lot. I shoot mostly black and white.
Okay.
I have to say, I mean, I've always been drawn to sort of the raw simplicity of black and white photography. And so, the photographers that I grew up studying and was really passionate about were people like Walker Evans, Tom Gutman, some of the early street photographers were really, people that work that really caught my eye. As I started kind of maturing in my own like use of photography, my own kind of study, I finally broke that barrier of like, I really want to photograph people, but there's this boundary that's hard to cross. It's just a psychological thing, but it's like, it's not easy for everybody to just walk up to people on the street and ask if you could take their picture or, meet a beautiful girl on the subway and go like, hey, I would love to take photographs of you. There's a whole psychology behind like getting comfortable with people and photographing them. And so that, took me a few years to sort of move through that whole learning curve. And that's what got me interested in fashion photography, which I kind of went down that road for a few years, working with fashion photographers, working as an assistant. And that's really where I learned most of what I know about photography.
So your street photography and so what would you say is like percentage of like street photography versus like model photography?
Well, I mean, I don't really shoot any fashion stuff that's like, commercial work, but I think all the work that I've done has always been based on portraiture.
Okay.
So it really comes from like wanting to know something about somebody, wanting to see somebody and put somebody in a certain light just because that's the way that you see them, or being really interested in somebody and wanting to get to know them and just having the honor of being able to take some pictures of them. So,
What's your
yeah, it's
approach?
all.
What's your approach to like people just on the street trying to get a photo? Like I've never been able to do that as well, so I'm kind of interested on this.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of like throw hell into the wind. Like I used to be like super shy about approaching people on the street. And the story I like to tell is like when I moved to Miami and in 2003, one of the first, well, the very first shoot I did was this young woman named Danya. And I was in a bookstore. It was in Books and Books on Lincoln Road. If you know Miami, that's like, that's like the spot, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I was in Books and Books, and this beautiful woman walks in with this scary looking boyfriend, and I was just like, God, I really, really want to photograph this person, but like, how am I going to approach her? And I just sucked it up and got the courage to like introduce myself. And we ended up shooting that afternoon at this house that they were renting, and those were like my first pictures in Miami Beach, and that eventually led to this series that came out in 2021 called 96 Degrees in the Shade. So yeah, I think it's just overcoming a little fear and just saying, fuck it. Like, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, when did you, I think you said it, but when did you start doing street photography and switch over from, like regular art, traditional?
I mean, I think I was always, when I first started, I was doing landscapes because that's sort of like the easiest, not the easiest thing to do. It's
Eh,
really hard to do a great landscape picture, but it's the easiest thing to get into
Yeah.
because you don't have to confront anybody. You just show up and, the sun comes down or the light's beautiful and you make a beautiful composition. And so I think that was like my first love was really making landscape photos. And then that transitioned into like starting to photograph people and I think street photography was really the easiest way to start that because I didn't have to really approach anybody. I could just kind of like show up and, you know, go to like a farmer's market or, an air show in San Francisco or just anywhere on the streets and find something that was really interesting. And so that's how it all kind of started. And in that, like during that time period, also, I started doing a lot of music photography.
Okay.
So for me, that was like a real passport into like just the stuff that I love to do. And I would just show up at concerts in LA, like with my camera, and people would just let me in, like backstage. Like I never really, it was kind of like that movie, Almost Famous.
Yep. I know exactly what you're talking about. You just show up with the camera and
Yeah.
they think you work there.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah,
best.
so that just led to like some amazing stuff. So yeah, it was street photography, music, portraiture, some fashion built into that.
Did you ever tour with any bands or do anything kind of just wild in the music scene?
I never really toured with anybody, but I'm about to release a couple of images that I shot of NWA in the studio.
Whoa.
Yeah, they were. I mean, I didn't know it at the time, but they were recording straight out of Compton,
Right.
and it was. I mean, right, it's just a piece of music history of like cultural history. And I showed up with a guy named Matthew McDaniel, and he was a little more like dialed into the West Coast hip hop scene. And he had this video camera, like a big heavy video camera, like sat on his shoulder, and would go around and interview artists. So he like brought me along one day and he's like, come with me to the studio. We're gonna go shoot this band called NWA. And I was like, okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and it was pretty wild because they had just come back from this gun shop and they were like, when I showed up in the studio, they were unboxing these like sawed off shotguns,
What year
some
was this?
crazy stuff.
What year?
87.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
wild, man. Are all these shots in black and white?
They are. They are. So there's kind of a beautiful and also a tragic part to the story because I was able to get some really amazing shots and I made some really nice prints and I never really did anything with the pictures. I mean, I didn't know what to do with the pictures at that time. There was nothing to do with them,
Hmm.
and they sat in my archive for a long time. And um, I was after I moved to New York, I had a friend of mine go down to my storage in Miami and box up a bunch of my stuff and send it back to me. And he sent me 4 boxes. When UPS showed up, there were only 3. And I was like, "Oh, no.
Hmm.
What am I missing here?" I went through all the boxes and realized that none of those negatives or proof sheets were in there. And I went through like a 6-month odyssey of like finally like just contacting US because you send them by US Postal Service and like didn't send them in great box. It was just a fiasco. And after about 6 months, I learned that the box had apparently broken apart at some UPS postal office in New Jersey. And they didn't know, like the box had just exploded. They didn't know what belonged to who and ended up just throwing everything away. So, yeah, I
That's
know. I literally
devastating.
cried for like a week. Yeah. Um, but the good news from that is that I did have some proof sheets. I did have some prints that I had made. And so I'm releasing a couple pieces called The Last Frames. Right now, there's 2 shots. Actually, in 2021, I sold 2 of the shots. One of Dr. Dre on the mixing boards, and one of DOC sitting on the piano bench holding these 2 like huge shotguns. And so those pieces sold. Sorry, this is kind of a long story, but
Oh, this is a cool
so
story.
yeah, so those two pieces I sold as NFTs in 2021, and I just found a couple of other proof sheets and have managed to make a couple of like really really nice images out of two of the shots. One of I not Ice Cube of Easy E. Ice Cube actually wasn't there that day, but it was Easy E standing holding this like crazy looking shotgun with a silencer on it. And then there's one that I really, really love, which is a group shot. And they're all like sitting around this piano, and like 3 of them have these shotguns in their hands. Yeah, I'll send you a screenshot of it. Yeah.
That's crazy. What a good use case for NFTs, man. Like, historical provenance of something that was lost because of physical copies.
Yeah, totally, totally. I really like. I really understood the value of um of NFTs and blockchain when I understood that. Like, yeah, this work can really be archived forever and sort of forever.
Yeah, I mean, you've been shooting for a long time. So, I mean, when did you get into NFTs and what were your thoughts on it?
Well, I got into NFT. It's funny because my girlfriend, who's now my wife, is got an invitation of early 2021. I think she got an invitation to, oh shit, what was it called? Shoot, the platform. It's the
Foundation?
conversation. Yeah, no, it was the conversation
Oh,
platform
oh,
for.
Clubhouse. Clubhouse.
Clubhouse. Yeah, so she got an invite to Clubhouse, and I was like, anyway. So eventually somebody did invite me, and I just started dialing in and just started listening to all these conversations about crypto. And that led to like conversations about NFTs. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting. So I listened to those conversations on Clubhouse for months. And on one of the Clubhouses, I started hearing about this guy, Justin Aversano. And I heard about his journey, and I looked him up and looked up who his collectors were. And just one thing led to another. I was like, okay, I got to put a collection together and see what I can do. And just by chance, I was able to connect with G Money on Twitter. And it really snowballed from there. He introduced it in the Punks Discord. And then it literally like, it literally blew up. Like the story about like how 96 Degrees launched is hilarious. It was like,
Tell me.
well, I didn't even know how many pieces I was going to launch, and then I saw that like Justin had launched Twin Flames with 100 pieces, so I was like, okay, let's do 100. So I knew I had at least 100 pictures that I could feel like confident in releasing as a collection. And so as I was putting these together, people started reaching out to me on Discord about like, can I get some of this work? I had put up a little website, so people were able to see like 10 pictures from the collection,
Okay.
and and so there were a bunch of people that were really interested. And on the day that I launched, I think I only had like 40 pieces ready to mint. And so I was telling everybody, like, okay, this might take a few days, but eventually I got the 100 pieces up there. And people got really dialed into it. So what would happen is I would like mint like 10 pictures and then they would all be bought. And so I was having trouble keeping up with it. Like, I think on the first day I minted like 30 of them, and they were all sold. And then the next day I minted like another 40. And as soon as I would mint something, it would suck because people were like hitting refresh on the page, like waiting for a new item. I mean, you know how it was in 2020. It was crazy. And so 3 days of minting, like I minted out the whole series. Yeah, I had some really funny experiences.
That's crazy. So what year was this? 2021?
This was August, yeah, August of 2021. So it just had its like 4-year anniversary.
And what was the mint price, if you don't mind me asking,
0.25.
for each piece?
Yeah.
That's awesome. And then I'm
Yeah.
assuming volume trading, all that started and, just started to pick up.
Yeah. There was a lot of trading on the secondary market once it sold out. And um I think G Money ended up selling a piece for like 6 ETH. And yeah, and then like a few weeks later, I had held back like 4 or 5 pieces just for myself. And a big collector, who I won't name because he's not in the space anymore, but was in New York, and he was like, "Hey, I really want to get a couple pieces, but I know the collection sold out. Like, do you want to have lunch and like talk about it?" Um, and we met up over coffee, and he ended up buying 3 pieces from me for 5 each. He looked at me and he was like, "Have you ever sold a picture for like $60,000?" I was like, "No,
No,
I definitely have not before, but I'm ready for it."
I've been waiting for it.
Yeah, I've been waiting. I've been waiting a long time for this. So, I mean, truth is that that collection was 18 years, 17 years old by that time. So the
Right.
pieces did have a very historical feel for. I sort of refer to it as like a retrospective.
Yeah, I think, that's I think that a lot of people will say like photography was overvalued in 2021. And I think people kind of miss like the historical provenance to what photography brings. These classic images from, MWA that will never be produced again. And it's impossible to replicate these historical moments. So it's like, I don't think the value has even come close to what it's going to be. I think it's still just deeply undervalued.
I think so too. I mean, if you look at how photography in print, is still so undervalued, it follows a pattern. Um,
Why do you
but
think that
yeah,
is?
that's a really good question. I just don't know. Historically, there is something a little bit different about photography because of the idea that you can make additions. In print photography, like, additions is such a weird thing. Like, you can have an addition of 5 for one picture that's 16 by 20. You can also have a 5-piece addition for that same piece for at 30 by 40 or something like that. I think it's hard for collectors to get their heads around like valuing it in some ways, or is it like a painting is just a painting?
Do you think it's because it's just kind of a newer technology as well, and, it's kind of easier for people to wrap their minds around just being able to pick up a camera and shoot as opposed to a paintbrush? It's kind of a learned craft.
Probably, yeah, probably. And I think really well educated collectors can see the value of like a real special photograph. But it's yeah, it's hard. And like you said, it's newer technology than painting. And today everybody's a photographer.
Yeah, ever since Instagram, right? But I mean, you were before all that. So let me ask you, I mean, like in the 80s, 90s, were you trying to sell any of your work into galleries or what was, like how was that seen?
I mean, not into galleries. I mean, I had a few people who were buying a little bit of my work, but I was mostly doing like commercial stuff for
Mhm.
like record companies and, trying to figure like a commercial side to using a camera.
There wasn't a market for
It was,
prints.
yeah, I didn't know that I didn't know that you could have a career as an artist.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
It
what's
just
kind
didn't
of
occur to me.
that's what's kind of I think interesting because like I think still photographers today are still figuring that out that you can make a sustainable living selling prints and you don't necessarily need to do commercial work if you don't want to.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. I mean, I really take my hats off to like so many of you guys who are out there, like working in photography full time, selling prints, doing, like doing commercial work. I've had this weird career where photography has always been a constant, but I've always, not always, but for most of my career, I've had like a full time job in the arts or something, um, uh, related to the arts. So I definitely spent many years as a starting artist. So I definitely qualify. But yeah, but also to do it over a very, very long period of time is really something.
Yeah, I mean, to be a starving artist for a long time is really something. I think like there's some kind of like romanticism about the idea of like living out of your car and like just doing your art and not, having to worry about anything. But at some point, you kind of have to be like, well, do I really want to continue living out of my car? Do I want to keep doing this? It's kind of, is this redundant? Am I going insane?
I know. It's like there's a line from Letters to a Young Poet by Rilke, and he's like talking to his protege, and he tells him like, ask yourself in like the darkest moments of the night, like whether you have to do this, like whether whether your life depends on being an artist. And if the answer is yes, then, you have to do it. You have to just keep going. In some ways, like I don't know if I answered that question like that. At the time, but and maybe there's a practical side to me. It was always like, dude, you better get a job so you can like pay your rent and feed your dog and eat. It's but I think the photography has like always come back to me numerous times during my life. So it's the thing that reminds me, yes, I'm still an artist. And yeah, it won't let me go. Yeah, I just keep doing it. And that's where I think like the embracing these new AI tools is coming because it's just given like a new spark of like inspiration and desire to go out there and make stuff.
Well, you say you always, it always like comes back to you. Do you try to quit?
I definitely don't try to quit.
Yeah.
Definitely don't try to quit. But I think as an artist, like you go through periods of like more creativity or less, and sometimes you just have to go out and like fill your cup up for a couple of years and get inspired again. It's yeah. I mean, wow. For anybody who could do this for 30 or 40 or 50 years, somebody like, I don't know, Joel Meyerowitz or, some of those people just been around forever and are just producing work day in and day out. It's fantastic. I've needed to like step away for periods of time, get my mojo back, and then come back with like a new idea or something.
Well, I think it's because, like it's not a traditional job. So it's almost like maybe you're constantly questioning, am I on the right path? What am I doing?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I think like I'm just one of those people that just didn't want to I just didn't want to suck it up and do like the photography jobs that I didn't want to do. And so, I don't want to sound like it's like I'm coming to it from a place of privilege. I just like I've always wanted to make the pictures that I wanted to make. So I thought, well, if I have to get a job as a barista so I can make the pictures I want to make, I'm going to do it because like I don't want to, I don't know. I shot two weddings and they both went very, very badly. So I crossed that out as like a possible, side job.
No, I mean it's true. It's like John Malkovich does like, huge giant movies, but like on the side, his like favorite like pastime, his gig is traveling around the world doing a play. Like that's what he makes no money doing it. In fact, like I think they had to cancel it because it just wasn't making enough money. But like, you know, that's his passion. So it's like sometimes you have to kind of like do the grunt work to fuel your passion. I mean, Scarlett Johansson does a $20 million, Black Widow movie and then does $30,000 working for Wes Anderson. So it's like
Yeah.
You have to kinda figure out, like, well, if I wanna chase my passion, sometimes I don't get to create the art I wanna create, and it does suck, but at the same time, I think it does open up doorways. I mean, I'm sure, like, the music industry, you weren't exactly, like, you I don't know, I don't know about your story, but, like, for example, with me, I got into landscapes, and then I kinda, like, pushed into the music. It was kinda like, well, this is a way for me to make money.
Yeah, that's really cool. I definitely wanna learn more about that. I had the opposite experience with music, photography. It was just like nobody wanted to pay me to do it. Like, I
So
just
nobody wants
showed
to
up
pay
because
for
I'm
it.
yeah, I just showed up because I wanted to, and I was lucky enough to just have these amazing experiences, like meeting NWA and, for I have like a really cool snapshot of Queen Latifah in this record store, and she was a student at USC at the time. Me and my old college roommate Paul Stewart, who ended up I think managing Snoop Dogg at one time, had created this little zine called the LA Informer. And I think we had like 4 issues, and we would just stay up like all night at like FedEx Kinkos and like print this thing
Dude,
and
I
like set the
remember
type and
zines. Zines were so
yeah.
cool.
They were really cool, yeah. I would love to get back into that, actually. There's a print lab at SVA that called Reso Lab, and they it's like a perfect, like, opportunity to make zines, and it's that's the kind of crap like, scrappy stuff that's just so much fun to do with your art, and the picture of NWA that I'm gonna release maybe next week or the week after is, the only place I ever published it was in this zine, and I still have, like, 1 copy. It's around here somewhere. If I can find it, I'll show it to you. Yeah, I think I have only 1 copy of the zine left too.
Zines were such a trip, man. I remember collecting those in, like, middle school. Zines were such
Yeah.
a trip. What got you into the music scene? Like, what kind of, like, pushed you into that?
Well, I was at the time, I mean, I had my favorite bands. I was, like, really into ska and reggae and, blues. I had a I had built a studio in, like, an old record store, and, there were 2 record stores next to each other on Pico Boulevard, and they even had, like, a little, like there was, like, a hole in the wall where they were, like, pass money back and forth to each other or other things.
Yeah.
And, for a minute, it was called the Annex, and they were selling hip hop records, but whoever was running it didn't have the chops for running a business, and so it sat empty for a long time, and I would still go into Cranes and like, pick up R&B records, and the owner told me, "Hey, the place next door, I'm renting if you're maybe interested. It'd be a really cool photo studio." So I ended up getting the place rent free for like 6 months, and there was a contractor that I met like right around the corner from there who helped me like build a kitchen and build a bathroom and a shower and put a loft bedroom, and we built that whole place out. And then I just kind of hung out there, and when artists would come through Crane's Records, on their, like, PR tours, he would bring them over, and I would either get to meet them or take a couple pictures of them, so sort of got integrated to the music scene that way, but it was mostly because I just loved going out and seeing music.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of, I feel like that a lot of photographers, like, their passion, like, they love music, they'll end up at the music scene just because they have the camera, and it just works out that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there were a couple of wild bands, like, The Untouchables and Fishbone were, like, 2, like, really big bands in, like, the '80s that I was really into. There were
Yeah, I was
bands
about to
and
say it sounds like ska bands.
yeah, yeah, totally. And I would like go to their shows and then just, we would just get wasted after the show and I ended up like sleeping on their floor of their apartment. It was really like we all became friends and there's just it was the whole thing. And so that was a big period of my life. And then I ended up moving to Miami and then to New York and the saga continues,
Yeah.
now like starting to work on educational products.
Yeah, I was just going back to ska music, I was just thinking, like, my first ska concert was the Skankin' Pickles when they opened for Less Than Jake.
Ah,
It was in, like, I think, like, '98 maybe?
cool.
Yeah, 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 I love that, man, just that whole punk scene. It's funny because growing up, like, in the punk scene and, like, those rave scenes, it does really remind me a lot of the crypto community. Like, a lot of the NFT community, just kind of like how corporations eventually came in and kind of, like, stole the narrative and kinda, like, just ran with it and created their own, kind of their own narrative, and I feel like that's inevitable, obviously, to like what's happening in crypto and NFTs, but I feel like we're still in that like early stage of like creating the narrative and hopefully like holding on to it and not just letting corporations come in and take it all away.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Hopefully, I mean, it's kind of inevitable, right? Because they even at $120,000 Bitcoin, everybody want now corporations want to buy it.
Yep.
They didn't want to buy it at $4,000.
No, where there's money in a
Like,
community, they'll find a way to exploit it.
yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah, so you mentioned you're in AI. You've started working on Cera AI. I played with it the other day. I think it's a really incredible tool. I haven't seen a whole lot of projects where, in fact, I don't think I've seen any. I'm sure there is something, but I haven't seen it where someone's created basically a community of advisors to, kind of like guide you and consult with. And I haven't seen that anywhere else. And what I think was really interesting is that you can choose based on the personality or what you're, like kind of aiming for, or it even auto chooses for you the advisor that you want to use. What made you create this? Like, what was the idea behind this?
Well, it was yeah. Thanks for bringing it up. I was I was starting to experiment with the ChatGPT. As soon as it came out, I started like playing around with it, was really, really intrigued and just astounded at like the wealth of information that you have access to when you dial into the LLM. So over the past couple of years, I've been like putting my images in there and getting feedback and really just for fun at first, but I found I was starting to get some really interesting feedback and starting like to see that like the image analyzation tools through ChatGPT were sometimes surfacing like things about my work that I didn't really see myself. It just gave me this like it just reminded me of like sitting with a mentor and like showing, somebody that you really respect your work and getting feedback that was like from another point of view. So as I started doing that, I started thinking, of course, like this could be better. What can I do to make this better? And so I started experimenting with it. And I started vibe coding a little project called Rustin AI. And that was just like a very lightweight critique app based on the voice of John Ruskin, who was a critic, sort of a critic during the Victorian era. So he was he was a tough guy, like really, I mean, tough, like in terms of artistic criticism, felt that art had art wasn't art unless it was made by your hands, unless you were sweating and toiling over it. And the materials were really important. Like it was all about the physical like labor that went into them.
Oh, he would have
So I thought
hated
like,
AI.
yeah. So I was thinking at that time, I was like, I wonder what this guy would say about like generative art
Oh
or
God.
AI, right? I programmed up this little thing. I was kind of astounded. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And then I was playing around with it. I like showed it to my students and got some really interesting feedback. And then one day I was sitting in this um, at this panel discussion, like a real panel discussion of of people who work in the like art and design industry who are using AI. Coming up over and over again in the conversation is this idea of collaboration, like AI's collaborative tool. It's like it's not going to tell you what to do, but like it can help you ask the right questions. And they were all talking about like how are they were using it in a collaborative fashion. And then the light bulb just went off. I was like, okay, this is not a critique app. This is like a council of voices that you can collaborate with, that like can sit beside you during your creative process and give you feedback on, the work that you're doing and not necessarily tell you this is good or bad, but help you surface like the kind of questions that you want to ask yourself as you're going through like the ideation process and putting a collection together and doing that stuff. So that's sort of how it came about.
That's really cool. So did you have you've messed with AI with your art as well, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean some of the work behind me is I mean these all three of the pieces are actually yeah, the top one was from a collection I launched at the NFT factory in Paris
It's
in
wild.
of 2023.
Yeah, this piece
So
is
this
really
was
cool.
thank you. Yeah, thanks. I mean, it's still up on Foundation. Did not sell out. But uh, I was really experimenting with like making very photographic works because I really like. I'm not a painter, and, I'm not a sculptor, but I know like visual language of photography. So working with AI, I just wanted to really tap into that like visual language that I understand. And I thought, well, the best way to do that is to first make it in black and white. So, it jogs you a little bit when you see it, like, is this a photo? No, of course that's not a photo. but it looks like a photo. What is this?
Yeah.
So yeah, so the first thing I did with AI was a project called Traces of Truth, and
What year was that?
that was in March of 2023,
Okay.
and it was like by all means a bear market. Like all of us who we liked were around for 2021 were just like sitting twiddling our thumbs in 2023, going, "Wow, like when is the market going to come back?"
Yeah.
But like people were really interested in AI, and and word got out about this collection I was putting together, and basically um, it was basically a set of I made a set of 500 portraits of twins. It was all they were all like they're all black and white portraits, and they were nearly identical twins, and the faces were really close together, and they were all wearing these cameras, which the AI like made into these fantastical, like weird, retro, futuristic kind of contraptions. But the beauty of it and the idea of the project was to I was thinking about like the idea that we're in this post-truth era, and like nothing is real anymore. Like, we just don't
Yeah.
know, we just don't know what we're looking at anymore. And so I was interested in the idea in the difference between like recognition and resemblance. And I think with twins, like it's a perfect analogy for it, because like twins are so many twins like look so similar, but they're totally different people. If you know one, doesn't mean you know the other. Yeah, so this was sort of an easy kind of um, association to make. And I created a set of 500 of these portraits, and God knows how this happened. Word got out, and the whole thing sold out in 60 seconds. It was just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, it was just mind blowing. Like, I didn't even have to, I didn't even have a chance to buy any for myself. I was like, I ended up buying them like four times the mint price, like,
That's
and on the
amazing.
secondary market. Yeah, it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. And then, I got to exhibit it around. It was up at NFT NYC. Tony Herrera did an exhibition. Uh, of them that year, I think, or no, not that year, 2023. Yeah. And then, like AI is just moving so fast, like attention spans are so short. It just sort of has fallen into like the, annals of AI history. That was the first project that I did.
Did that kind of like lead you to creating Cera AI?
It made, I was starting to look at my own photography through the lens of like ChatGPT at that time, but not that much. It really didn't start until like my interest in creating this app didn't start until about 6 months ago. Like this has been a really fast moving project. And as you know, like when you put information into ChatGPT or any LLM, like the volume and the like power of like what you get back is like so overwhelming that it's really easy to fast forward very, very quickly. And so it's hard to like, I know for me, the hard thing was managing like how fast it was going. Like I kept saying like, I'm like, wait, like we need to keep track of this. Like you
Yeah.
just throw me like some incredible information. I need to start cataloging this kind of stuff. Anyway, I'm kind of getting into the weeds, but yeah, but the process of making Sarah has really just been like a 6 month journey.
Yeah. And so as a user, like, if you wouldn't mind just kind of like walking me through. So I'm a photographer. I want to, let's say, what do I want to do? I want to just evaluate my work, get an idea of like how I can curate that into a collection. What were the steps be to go into this?
Sure. So yeah, I mean that's a great use case. Um, so when you so right now Sarah's in beta, so you can just click the apply for beta, get accepted. There's no cost to the app right now. And when you sign in initially, after you've created your account, you'll come to the sessions page. And in the sessions page, you just give the app a little information about the project you're working on. You give it a title, make something up, give it a little definite description of what you're working on, and then you can upload a series of images. So you can upload your images to the app and then decide, as you were saying earlier, whether you want to select an advisor from the panel of 12 or if you want Sarah to select an advisor for you. So you can also do that, which was a really cool, like, secondary option that eventually got built into the project. So Sarah can basically evaluate like what you're doing, choose an advisor for you, and boom, then you're off on your way on a conversation.
And then you coded this whole thing yourself, right?
I coded it myself, but not really. Like
You
I
used
mean, I didn't
AI.
hire develop. Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't hire developers to do it, but I was essentially vibe coding it before I knew I was vibe coding it. Like I opened up what's the program on the Mac? Visual Studio. And opened up Visual Studio, I was like, okay, I don't know what to do here. ChatGPT, I was like, okay, this is my idea for the app. But it wasn't Sarah. It was like a very like early stage version of it.
Yeah.
And it gave me some like it wrote some code for me and I put it in Visual Studio and I was like, holy shit, like it actually has something. What happened? And it was really cool. So I was building it that way. I was like going to Claude, I was going to ChatGPT, I was getting them to write code. I was like updating the app, I was trying to look good. Sometimes it was super frustrating. Like I would make a lot of progress over a week and then like I would do something fucked up that like set me back like 10 days.
Uh,
So I started learning like how this process worked. I started learning some of the language of like of coding, and I have some background as like a product manager, so I had an idea of like how to build stuff, but coding was just like a whole nother ball game. Um, and I was actually in the Meebits chat with Sergito, and a bunch of other people, and somebody was giving a presentation on Cursor and on vibe coding. I was like, oh, that's what I need. So I literally went in that day and just started like signed up for an account with Cursor and started coding it in Cursor. And one thing led to another. And like all of a sudden, like 6 months down the road, I've got like a real app.
yeah, you got like a real product here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all vibe.
Yeah, and I think like the idea because it's hard to find like criticism on your work. Like you can ask your like friends, or you can ask your partner or whatever. But I think like having something that's non-biased, is just kind of like is completely stranger to you, is a really cool concept, especially like with multiple advisors. And so, what do you kind of like see? Where do you see this project going? Like, what do you ultimately would like to do with it?
Well, right now it's in beta. We're starting a pilot program at School of Visual Arts. So I'm really excited about that. It's something that I've just started to put together. We'll be using it in our program this year, in the Fashion Photo Graduate Program through almost all of our classes. And we'll be using Sarah as like part of the curriculum. And then the idea is to roll it out to more educational institutions. I mean, first, we got the green light at SVA to open it up more broadly. So after we do this pilot in our program, my hope is that we'll roll it out to other programs inside of other departments at SVA.
Hmm.
And gosh, I don't know. I mean, once I'm just taking stages, but I'm already thinking about the capital raise, and there's a business there. I think what's going to happen is we're going to get overwhelmed. There's going to be like, it'll work for 100 users, no problem. But what happens when we get to 1,000 users?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
And
say. Is it
you know,
scalable?
yeah, it's totally scalable, but not with me at the helm of the cursor and coding
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Yeah,
You're gonna need
yeah.
like
So I'll be looking to bring in a developer
you're gonna need a server
and
farm at some point.
yeah. Right now the back end is robust. Like the back end is all on Vercel and Neon database, and there's some really like we definitely need to like scale it up a little bit. But yeah, I mean the road from 100 users to like 10,000 users or 100,000 users, um, it's actually like there's not that much to really do on the back end. It's got a pretty solid back end right now. But obviously when you get to that stage, it requires like a whole team. So
Yeah, no
so yeah,
kidding.
I think there's a business there, but we're rolling slowly and learning more about the product and learning more what users want. I think that's the real value for me of the beta test stage. It's like people are constantly emailing saying, "Hey, what about adding this? What about adding that?" And those things are starting to show up in the product now.
Yeah, it seems like opportunity or preparation kind of meant opportunity with education, with your background in photography, then, messing with AI for the last few years with your art. It's kind of like the perfect storm that kind of created the idea, of how you can evolve this into like a consultation program.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of things coming together at the same time that are really like I think making the possibility for this thing um, to work. The interesting thing is I think we're in this Web3 space where like the conversations are all about transactional stuff. When the mint is coming out, or why somebody's not buying my work, or like, oh. I just sold a piece for, 4 ETH or whatever. And then so you're in this like constant flux of like artists selling a lot of stuff and like getting a lot of like, you know, flowers on the app, and then like others that are kind of struggling, and then a bunch of people in the middle. But the conversations are all, from my perspective, have all been really about the transaction. And I think like the cool thing about building Sarah was the idea that like, okay, look, we're not selling like lottery tickets here. Like we're making art.
Yeah.
And if artists want to own the conversation, we have to like learn more about our art, learn more about the ecosystem, figure out how to collaborate better with collectors and all of that stuff. And all of that stuff is stuff that you can do in Sarah. You can learn more about your work. You can go deeper into like what your core themes are and ideas. You can refine projects. I just started a session in Sarah posing as a collector, and realize that this is actually a collector's tool too. If you're looking at like John Knopf's photos, I'm gonna why not put like 5 or 10 pictures into Sarah and say like, hey, let's talk about this. What is this work about? Like, who are the other people, that I should be looking at? Or how do I value this work? That kind of thing. So I think there's a significant opportunity for collectors too. You don't just have to be an artist, like trying to make work here.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up because I feel like, especially like, so the other day I went to like collect photography, and the only way I could find editions was by going to Twitter and literally typing in NFT photography editions, because there's no real simple way. Like you go to Transient Labs, you can go to Manifold, you can go to OpenSea, but to see everything, to see everybody, because, some people are on different platforms, you kind of have to go to Twitter. There's no real like central place for it. And I feel like as collectors, as they begin to onboard into the space, especially like in real life collectors that we're talking, have multi-billion-dollar curated art collections. It's kind of like, where are they going to go? How are they going to, they're not going to sit there on crypto Twitter and learn all the lore behind every single person, every single artist, what's happened, the history. There's no real simple way. And I feel like AI is kind of giving us the tools. And this is, I mean, I feel like this is a great opportunity for collectors to dive in, especially in real life traditional, to see what's going on. And that type of guidance is so important. Curation is so essential.
I think it is. Yeah, I really think it is. I think it is really an opportunity for collectors to learn more about like artists' work, and learn like more about like what's under the surface of the work too, Like, I mean, of course collectors want to know like, is this artist selling? What's their trajectory? What were the last pieces that they made? What did the last pieces they made sell for? Is price going to go up? Like that's
Right.
really, there's a huge, like there's a whole side of collecting that's like a casino, and then there's another side of it that's like collectors who truly are like interested in the artist, helping the artist grow their career, and I'm hoping for a lot more of the latter. So I hope that, Sarah can also fill a part too, to help that too.
I've always said this since the beginning. The most important thing is educating yourself, learning as much as you can about the space, because knowledge in this space is without question power. It can make you money. It can do anything for you. So I think like the more we evolve within this space, it's going to be so crucial for products like Cera AI to be able to help just guide the way. So yeah, this is hats off to you.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks. It's going to be really interesting. I'm excited to see where all of this goes. I think that like I think I'm very dedicated um, to working with young artists. I've done this throughout my career, but even before I was at SVA, working with artists, like building e-commerce teams, and I worked for a couple auction houses, and managed a team of 30 global photographers, and this sort of thing. And so, like, I think that when you see an artist um, really start, what am I trying to say here? When you see an artist who's like availing themselves of like all the, great like academic tools and knowledge and mentorship and all of these things, and just the experiences of like being a photographer and just going out there shooting every day and seeing their like progress over the years was really, really satisfying. And I think in the way that like artists can use Sarah to really deepen their understanding of their own work and just become better at what they do, it really helps the whole space, because there's like people are always talking about like how much AI slop there is out there. And I wrote back to somebody yesterday saying like, yeah, there's like a lot of all kinds of slop like
Yeah.
there, but it's just mostly because we're in this like transactional space and everything's totally democratized. Anybody can take a picture, anyone can make an AI picture, anyone can, mint something on the blockchain, anyone can open a Twitter account. So it's like so democratized that we're just in this like sea of a lot of noise. So I hope that like tools like Sarah can, help artists like focus better, cut through the noise and help collectors cut through the noise too.
Yeah, where do you so I mean you were an early minter. It's where do you see this space heading? Especially I think like the photography space. Do you see I hear a lot, photography's dead, NFTs are dead. Where do you see the future of this?
No, I think photography is I think I think okay.
I love that. I'm going to quote you on that. Photography enjoys being dead. That's great.
I think it's, it's always been the unsung hero. I think like, photography, in as much as it is really a reflection of our life on planet Earth, I think will always be around and people will always roll back to it. I think like AI is the new shiny thing right now, and something will happen that's the new shiny thing next. But I think people will continue to roll back photography to see like, well, yeah, this is what our life is like actually when we're not in the metaverse, when we're not on Twitter, when we're not like, like spending all day on like Mid Journey or Runway or whatever it is. Like, yeah, well, there's this life going on, and particularly in this moment in time. Like, I mean, one of my biggest questions with Sarah right now is like, how do artists meet this political moment? And not to go down that rabbit hole too far, but like we're living our lives, and like photography is a record of all of this stuff. AI is not a record of that. It just isn't,
No. Yeah. And I think like the blockchain is so important for holding that provenance to show that not only is it not AI, but it's recording those types of history. So I think like where do you see photography NFT? Like, maybe like 5 or 10 years.
I think like just the way you brought up the example of like how, my like horrific like loss of negatives and prints and proof sheets is an example of like why photography in some ways is perfect for the blockchain, or why blockchain is perfect for photography rather. It's just like the ultimate it's just like the ultimate provenance tool. It's the ultimate like save it forever. I mean, I don't know. You probably have stuff on hard drives that's not accessible. I have hard drives that I'm like, they stopped working a long time ago. Like I don't know what the hell is on it. So, you know, like if you don't have the physical negative or the print, like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, it'd be interesting to know if like blockchain would be possible for like literally archiving tens of thousands of a photographer's work. Maybe it is,
Hmm.
Um, I've heard a couple artists recently who said like, I minted a bunch of stuff, but it's not for sale. Like I just minted it to put it on the blockchain. Like if someone discovers it and wants to buy it, we can have a conversation, but that's not why I put it on there. And I think maybe there's some, interesting use cases there down the road. So maybe it's not all transactional.
I don't think it is. I mean, if you look, it was Keith Grossman who brought up this really valid point one time in this space, and he said, it's not that photography isn't valuable. It's extremely valuable. Look at Instagram. People will spend hours sitting there looking at pictures. It's not that it's not valuable. It's just not monetized correctly. So if you think about like how we utilize the Web3 space, I remember like coming into, in 2020 and looking at it and thinking, so I can shut down my physical galleries and put galleries on the internet and people can see it and it can be for sale or it doesn't even have to be for sale. It's almost like an exhibition. And these are just my online galleries without having to pay employees, without having to pay for marketing. This is the most democratized, greatest concept ever. And I think like more photographers, more artists really should look at it like I don't really necessarily have to put my art for sale as much as I just want to show people my art, have it available to see. And then if someone does make me an offer, we can, talk about it. But it's more of what can I utilize these platforms for? And I think that's like the most missed opportunity is that you look at something like Super Rare Foundation, anything, and you think, well, this is a great opportunity for me to promote and sell my art, market it. This is a great opportunity for you to just display your art because this is, in my opinion, like the groundbreaking revolution of how we provenance to art because we've never had this opportunity before. You look at any photographer previous to the blockchain, and everything's done in house. Certificates of authenticity, storing anything that shows the integrity of the collection, from numbers to everything. It's all done in house. There's no public blockchain, public ledger for you to view it that I'm aware of. So when you think about that, it's like it's almost it's extremely important for photographers to start onboarding and just utilizing storing their art on the blockchain.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Can we take a time out for just one
Yeah,
sec?
yeah, man, we can hit it. Yeah, we
You
can pause
sure?
right now.
Okay.
Hold
Will you
hold
pause
on.
for just 1 second?
Pause.
I need
Forget.
like
Yep.
awesome. I need like 2 hours ago. Unbelievable.
This is crazy. Just watching this, like, this Ethereum all-time high. We're about to hit it, like literally like $30 away.
It's so cool. It's really, really cool.
Beautiful time.
I think when I got into NFTs in 2021, Ethereum was like, I don't know, 2000 something. I don't remember. I remember each of the NFTs was like in dollar value was like 700 something dollars. I was just like, this is crazy.
Yeah, I remember when someone
Um,
told me to buy ETH and it was like $200. I was like, "What is ETH? Like, what is Ethereum?" Okay, I'll check it out.
I know. I remember those times back in 2017, like bought a Bitcoin for $4,000 and people were like, oh, you need to buy some ETH.
Yeah, it's like,
It's
what's
like
ETH?
$200.
That was the
Yeah.
same
And
thing
I
that
was like,
happened.
why?
Yeah, it's like, well, what's ETH?
I know. I remember I was in a Discord back in a Telegram group back then, and there were a couple of guys on the group that got in on the ETH ICO.
Jesus.
And I remember when ETH was like $200, one of the guys was like, "Oh my God," he's like, "My wallet is worth like $400,000." I
That's
just,
insane.
I know it's insane. It's
Imagine
insane.
the biggest regret I have is like instead of like claiming CryptoPunks, I was like playing Grand Theft Auto.
Mm.
Like the biggest regret I have, like literally, I could have been claiming CryptoPunks. That, and if I had known about CryptoPunks, I would have been all over it.
I had no idea what CryptoPunks were at that time. People in that Telegram group, they were all like Bitcoin maxis, and they were like always shitting on ETH tards, and like that was like the name for it. Like people were just like so crazy about ETH, and they were like, why? And then in the conversation it pivoted like to rare Pepes and crypto kitties.
Yeah,
That was the thing. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
this is where we're going.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same
No
thing is happening
idea.
to Solana right now. I feel like ETH maxis are like, fuck Solana.
Hmm.
Same.
Yeah, I know, I know. I mean, it's really cool to see ETH at $4,000. Like, I could see a $15,000.
Yeah,
Like, why not?
I could see, like, I think that's the thing that everyone's like missing is that they're saying like this cycle is gonna, we're gonna go down 90% again and all this. And I don't think we've seen regulatory clarity like we have, legislation like we have ever in history. And because of that, we could easily see ETH go to a $2 trillion market cap. I mean, gold's what, a $20 trillion market cap? We got Bitcoin at 4. You don't think ETH will hit 2 or 3? No question.
Yeah, when you have people like BlackRock that own like 1% of like all Bitcoin,
Yeah. You got Michael
they're not going to
Saylor
know.
owning a huge percentage. I mean, if we're going to talk about like decentralization,
I know it's a little bit the antithesis of why it was created, but I think those people aren't going to let it go to zero anymore.
no, I do not see it ever dropping the way it ever did before in the past. And I hate to say that it is highly manipulated now, but it's highly manipulated now. And I don't see it doing what it used to do anymore.
Yeah, but in a different way, right? Because I think maybe if it is manipulated in a way, that means it's going to be less volatile, probably.
Yeah, that's the thing is
Like
like,
there is that curve is sort of going to even
how do
out
you
a little bit.
trust store of value with something so volatile?
Right. Right. Exactly.
We need to maintain volatility. Let me ask you if, as someone, who's early in NFTs, if I were, let's say, trying to learn about NFTs, I like crypto. I think it's interesting. I understand stable coins, but NFTs make absolutely no sense to me. What would you say to explain it to me, to make me understand like the value of NFTs? Because that's the one thing I've noticed that I'm coming across is that all these, people that I've talked to in the past, when I told them 5 years ago, buy crypto, they said to me, oh, I don't understand the use case of a digital money. It just doesn't make sense. I trust tangible items, my cash. Now they're coming to me. I understand crypto, stable coins. It all makes sense. I don't understand NFTs.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't even feel to answer that question.
I know it's a hard question to answer because it's like, how do you explain the
It's
use case of NFTs?
well, I think yeah. I think the thing that I mean, to be perfectly honest, like the thing that I struggle with related to NFTs is I see so much beautiful art that like I want to buy that piece, but I live in the real world too. Like
Mhm.
I want I want to be able to frame it like in my house or in my office or something. So if there's not like a physical for me, if there's not like a physical piece that's possible, and of course, I mean you can put it on a screen. That's, there's other ways of viewing it. But I think I want to think about it more in those terms. And I think maybe we like should be like thinking about if you buy a piece of artwork because you really love it and want to look at it.
Mhm.
Like I don't want to just have it in my wallet and be able to like, I like yeah, I don't want it to just I don't want to just wear it like a Rolex. Like
It's not a flex.
yeah, it's not totally a flex. I mean, there's so much great artwork that I want to put on my wall, and I see it as an NFT, and I'm like, I really want that NFT, but how am I going to see it and view it? So I think there's just like, I think NFTs need to be a little more connected with the physical world. And when that happens, I think you'll see more dot art collectors being more interested in it, you know?
Yeah, because they just fully can't wrap their mind around owning something that's not tangible, that just has a digital presence.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I think there's like some good use cases for that, and there's like some good rationale, like to just have these digital works. But I don't know. I think like the thing that like developing the artist and collector relationship, I think like requires that this collector be able to look at that piece that they've collected for more than like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Like really need to like live with it and understand it and see how that work like lives in your environment, in your living room, in your bedroom, whatever it is, sculpture in your garden. Like once those conversations can happen, I think NFTs like will find a better like a better home with art collectors. Yeah. I had a funny experience when I first when I launched 96 in the shade. And I was so over the moon. It was just like, oh my God, I don't know what just happened. Like this incredible experience. And I was like, somebody in the trad art world needs to know about this. I was like, who could I tell? Who could I tell? So I got the information for this. I won't mention his name, but he was one of the New York Times really well known art critics and had
Jerry
wrote a
Saltz.
it wasn't Jerry Saltz, but it was a guy who'd written a book on Avedon. So I'm leaving some breadcrumbs. Um, he is very well respected in the traditional art world and the photography world. And so I got his email address and I wrote to him and I was like, hey, this is Barry Sutton. I'm the chair of the MPS fashion photography program at SDA. And I just want to let you know I just launched this collection of NFTs, black and white NFTs that were shot on film and blah, blah, blah. I gave him a whole pitch about it. And I was really excited about it. And I was like, is this something you would be interested in like learning more about or writing about? And he wrote me back like within like 2 minutes. I got this email back from him. I was like, oh, I got an email back. Clicked on it. Dear Barry, NFTs make me sick. That was that was that was the whole email. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. So I like, I understand like it's definitely a stretch for older at art people to like, you know, it, get out of their comfort zone and into this like decentralized like, oh, we're not the gatekeepers anymore. What are we gonna do?
Right.
I could totally understand it. So then like about a year later I anonymized the email and I screenshot it and I released as an NFT and I sent it to like I sent it for free to like all my collectors.
That's amazing, dude. That's a good use case for NFT.
Yeah, you can find it. You'll find it on the blockchain. You can find it on OpenSea. It's called NFTs Make Me Sick.
That's great, man. I love it. Well, where can people find you? Where's socials, website? Where can people find your work? All that stuff.
Sure, thanks. So my work and there's links to sort of everything I'm doing at my website, barrysutton.com. That's, maybe a good place to start. Cera is available at cera.art. And yeah, just seeing that Verse is doing some really, really interesting things, sort of like pulling artists' work into big galleries. So yeah, I would encourage people to go to Verse as well. You just go to Verse and type my name in there and you can find pretty much everything.
I know nothing about Verse.
Oh yeah, really cool platform. Really
Okay.
good people, really cool platform.
I'll have to look into this Verse.
Yes.
Yeah, good curation, or how does it work?
Yeah, it's really good curation. It's they don't release anything that in and of themselves, except I think they do have this studio, Verse Studio. I forget. I was talking to photographer Shane Lavalette about this
Love
yesterday.
Shane. Love his
Um,
work.
yeah,
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 good
Shane's such
dude.
a great guy.
Yeah, really good dude.
Yeah. We had a really, really great combo yesterday. I hadn't seen him since the Raw down, and I remember that whole fiasco.
Yeah, I do. Sorta.
Yeah. So, but where was I going with that? Well, so he's over at Verse now,
Okay.
and
Oh
it's I think
yeah. He
verse.io.
Yep, he
Yeah,
DM'd me about this. Yeah, he said I have to look
yeah,
into this.
yeah. So they don't release anything on their own, but they work with curators. They work with galleries. They work with curators. Yeah. Hopefully, we'll do something together with with some of the Sarah artists.
Yeah, I think it's so important. Curation, people will look at it as gatekeeping. It's like, how do you bring in collectors and just say, good luck finding, It's like you need people to curate, you need people to show, to guide, to be stewards of this space. It's so essential.
Yeah, totally, totally. Well, I'm really excited that you're doing this podcast and that you're bringing this to all your viewers, because I know you have a lot of people, a lot of young photographers, a lot of collectors, a lot of people that are really support photography and want to be supported um, in the photography space that have been following you for a long time. So
Yeah, I didn't
yeah, it's
really
an honor to be on the
Thank you so much. I didn't really know like where I was going with the podcast other than I started doing those photo threads, God, like 4 years ago and learning all about these artists and realizing like every time I do another thread, I learn more and more about an artist that I never knew. And I find it so fascinating and so interesting. So I was like, why not just sit on these spaces and talk to them, get to know their story and probably learn a hell of a lot more. So thank you for being the first guest. Thanks for joining us.
pleasure.
Yeah, yeah, Barry, it was a pleasure meeting you, talking to you about all your art. I'm really excited to see your next upcoming projects, spreading the word about Sarah. And yeah, anything else you want to add before we close out?
Thanks. No, just a call for artists. Go to sarah.art and sign up for the beta. I would love to have you.
Yep, you hear that, everyone? Sign up for the beta, and we will catch you on the next show. Thanks again, Barry.
Thank you.